welcome to day 4 of the Viviches International Bay Dance Festival. Thank you for joining us from various countries and various time zones. So it's 9:30 in the night in India, and I just don't know I'm wondering what time it is in your country. Tell us in the comments below what time it is. I'm curious and which country you're joining in from. Today we have Shahrzad's class. It's on Shimmy Challenge. We'll tell you more about Shahrzad in a minute. But let me take a moment to thank all our collaborators, which you just saw on our slide. And that also actually includes Shahrzad. She's been very generous. She's going to be giving us some very yummy gifts, which I'll come to in a second. Do share your love for and support for if you appreciate our festival and have been enjoying the content or are looking forward to the content, go and share it in your social media, share it and tell your friends about it, and give us a heart if you have started to already appreciate and enjoy some of our workshops. So, and a big thank you to all our teachers, right? They always love to see how much you're appreciating their workshops. So go ahead and do that. And also you have the option of starting a watch party. So it's very simple. Below the live video, you have an option to which says share or start. And that allows you to tell your friends that you're watching something interesting and you're tuning into one of the global superstars of the world soon. So you want to probably share that with your friends. So go ahead and share that and send us a screenshot because we have surprises for people who are completing the circle of love and sharing and supporting our work, because it's a lot of work that's going behind the scenes, and especially our teachers are putting in a lot of efforts even besides their workshop, in all the communication, coordination, tech rehearsals, even being deciding what to teach you. There's been a lot of conversations. They have been very deliberate about what to share, and so yeah, there's been a lot of thought going behind every workshop that you're coming across. So go ahead and do that. Each workshop is going to be up for 48 hours, so you have plenty of time to dig into the material, and you can always leave your comments and your questions even after the live, because the teachers are going to go back and look at the comments, and if there's anything that they need to respond to, they've been very generous to say that they would respond to them. All right, so coming to Shahrzad, I think Shahrzad needs no introduction. We all know her. She's also familiar. We constantly come across her work on social media, which has mesmerized so many people. She has a very active YouTube channel where she constantly posts material and content for her students, and she's constantly inspiring us with her material. And she's a stickler for detail. We know that, right? So she's very thorough about what she teaches. So we really appreciate that she's always been reaching out to the global community and sharing her work. So yes, but here she's going to be live, and she's going to be taking a workshop which is on Shimmy, which is going to be a Shimmy challenge, and you'll have a chance to win some yummy prizes. So Shahrzad is, for those of you who are probably yet wanting to get more familiar, is a superstar, much sought after belly dancer. She's based in Cairo, and she splits her time between being in Cairo and performing full time, and also teaching around the world, workshops and intensives. I had the fortune to actually watch Shahrzad in Cairo in July last year. We went I think at 2 a.m. in the morning to watch her show, and she had a very busy night. She showed up. She did an amazing performance, very smooth, sophisticated, contained, and very, very Egyptian, beautiful performance, and she mesmerized the audience. And then she had a call, and she had to run for another performance, and basically working the whole night through is super busy. And I was like wondering, I was asking her how you keep up with staying up the whole night performing, and it's like that's Egyptian being a life. That's the life of an Egyptian dancer, right? And that's actually Shahrzad is going to come on a panel discussion where she's going to share with you what it is behind the scenes in what goes on behind the scenes in the life of a dancer in Cairo, how easy, difficult, what are the challenges you face. So stay tuned for that panel discussion as well. So where we have 5 dancers from 5 different countries coming on board. How cool is that, right? So, Shahrzad discovered her love for belly dance very young. She started dancing since she was 11, and she quickly found a passion for Egyptian style and dance. And she's been studying with the top dancers in the world. And she currently offers classes online, and she's been very actively offering intensives online. So go check out her work. She's constantly, she just recently had a course on musicality, which even I wanted to be a part of. So, and she recently published her own album called Bahalem Bi Shahrzad. And that's basically popular Egyptian songs that you can dance to. And that's going to be one of the prizes for our winners. And there's another CD that we also have, which that she has produced, is called Cairo Cabaret, and basically that's mostly live music that she's performed with her band. So that's very generous of her to offer these as prizes. And not only that, she's also got a foundational course, which is like a foundational belly dance technique video, which she's going to be giving again as prizes, and also a modern Egyptian musicality course, which has got 4 videos, and it's a longer course. So thank you so much, Shahzad, for being so generous. So, and I'm sure people are like going to happily compete because they want to be able to get all that material. So, well, I think I would let Shahzad introduce herself in a workshop. So, thank you so much, Shahzad, and over to you.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to be online with you today, and thank you so much, Lena, for inviting me to be part of this and just creating such a great event. Make sure that you guys keep your eye on the comments and make sure to make some donations to the cause that this is all for. We are helping to raise money for migrant workers in India that have been displaced by the pandemic. So anyway, we are going to have a super fun class today. I'm going to be sharing some of my foundational technique for my shimmies and some of my isolations. At the end, we're going to kind of slap a bunch of it together to come up with a fun thing that we can all share and post and participate in as kind of a challenge. And as Lena said, I have some awesome prizes to give out for this. So really happy you guys are with us. Hope you participate and make sure to donate to the cause. So without further ado, let's get up and let's start dancing. We are going to start with some technique. But first off, we're just going to do a little bit of a warm up to get our muscles moving and to get our spine and a bunch of our joints active. Let's go. All right, so starting out with the feet apart, I'm just going to be sliding my hips. When I'm sliding, I have a pretty straight back. So I'm holding my belly in, knees are a little soft, not locked out to the back. I'm just sliding back and forth to open up those side muscles. Now let's take it into the upper body, sliding with the chest and the arms. Try to keep the hips calves, the ankles, and stretching out through the feet. A little faster, one and one. Try and tuck the knee in. Now I'm lifting my arms up a little in front of my body, and I'm going to roll my hands down to up, up to down to up to down. I'm stretching my fingers towards my forearm and changing. Try and add it in with the feet. To the hips, back to front with the hands. Lift the chest up, bring the arms forward, down to up, down to up, down to up. Lift up, hands are facing out to in. Then circle the arms all the way up. We're going to open the chest up to stretch the belly muscles, and then bend, contract, and round the back to bring the arms in. So we're coming up, open, down, in. Up, open, down, in. And bring the arms all the way around, give it a little shake out, and we will get started with our technique. So the style of belly dance that I primarily study and practice is Egyptian style belly dance. Of course, there's a lot of variation even within each style that has a lot to do with each dancer's personal technique and her personal style. But I will be giving you my basic technique that I use for a lot of my shimmies and my isolations and belly work. One of the defining factors to me about Egyptian dance is the shimmy. We have these beautiful, relaxed, vertical shimmies in the hips. And I tend to do kind of an older style where we really see the vertical movement in the hips instead of kind of a full body shake. So there are a lot of little details that change the way that our bodies react to these movements. The first thing we have to be really mindful of is the posture that we use when we dance. The position not only of the legs and the knees, but also the pelvis and the back is going to completely change the way that the shimmy reverberates and moves through the body. So to get that really vertical shimmy with a lot of reverberation through the hips and through the back of the legs, I tend to keep my feet about hip distance apart. And of course, as we go through different variations, the foot position will change. But just our basic position, I'm going to try to align my legs with my hip bones. So this is going to be a little different for every person's body because we do have different sizes of our hips. So I'm going to find where my hip bones are and think about drawing a line straight down through my leg into the ground. So I have a nice stable alignment here that I can work off of. Now, I don't come into a big plie when I do my shimmies. So I'm not thinking about bending my knees and changing the level of my body when I shimmy. It's more of a straight leg shimmy, but my legs are not locking out to the back. So one thing that can help us prevent this locking of the knees is just a slight adjustment to the position of the pelvis. So instead of relaxing my pelvis and letting my tailbone hike up in the back, which allows the knees to lock, and it also changes the movement of the hips, I'm using my lower belly as well as the weight positioning in my feet and my legs to bring the position of the pelvis to a more neutral posture. And by neutral, I'm meaning that my pelvis is flat, my hips are underneath my rib cage, and my spine is long and straight. So instead of thinking about the tailbone pointing up or to the back, I'm thinking about engaging through my low belly to rotate my pelvis, to drive that tailbone down. So you can see how the level of my hip scarf becomes level with the ground as I do this, but the level of my head isn't changing. So it is a little bit of different positioning in the pelvis and the legs. You'll find that when you come into this position, your thighs pull forward more in line with the front of the body, which allows for more work through the thighs and the abdominals and less tightness and strain through the back and through the glutes. So in this position, I'm thinking about my weight resting a little bit forward on my feet. And the main reason for this is that I do add a lot of variations where I walk and move around the floor on demi-point. So I want to have that flexibility of being able to pop up onto my toes as quickly and seamlessly as possible. So try to think about the weight in your body more centered towards the front of your foot, just for this shimmy in particular. So my pelvis is neutral, driving the tailbone down. I'm relaxing through my glutes. My weight is a little bit in the front of my leg, and I'm going to start to bend and straighten my knees back and forth. So I'm continuously driving the belly button and the low belly in, like I'm contracting those muscles, but not just contracting, I'm thinking about pulling them back towards my spine to create a nice hollow feeling in the belly, which is going to change how the reverberation of the shimmy looks, but I'll come back to that in a minute. So the motion of my legs that I use, I'm giving you guys the real specific breakdown because I'm a big anatomy nerd. So the movement of my knees, also important. Like I said before, I'm not locking back into my knees. And this is really important when we start layering our shimmies, because when we start locking back into the knees, it tends to bring the movement into the whole body. And this forces a weight shift in our legs as well, which is really hard to keep going if you want to then layer movements like walking. So instead of locking the knee back, I'm going to use a motion that's closer to walking. So when we walk, we bend our knee, it comes slightly in front of the other leg, and then it comes to a neutral position as we change our weight. When we walk, we also don't change the level of our head when we bend and straighten the knees. So I think about this range of motion for this particular shimmy. So my knee is coming forward in front of the other knee. The one that's coming back is coming to a neutral position. And now I'm thinking about the energy in my legs, because when we're doing knee-driven shimmies, it's very important to make sure that we know where and how we're using this energy from the legs so that we're not just shaking our legs and hoping that our hips move. So when I straighten my leg, instead of letting all of that power drive down into the floor and get lost in my foot and in my leg, I'm thinking about lengthening my thigh up to lift the hip. So as I bend and straighten, I'm pushing up, 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 up. Important thing here to start to think about is that you don't want to be shifting your weight back and forth. I think this is one of the hardest elements about the shimmy to really master So start being aware of where your weight is when you shimmy. So my weight is going to be even between my feet because I don't want to have to rely on pushing back and forth, which is going to bring the movement into the rest of my body, but it's also going to be hard if we try to layer other movements. So weight is even. I'm just using that energy to push up into my hips. I'm continuing to hold my low belly in, lengthen the low back and the tailbone towards the floor, driving the hips up. 1, 2, 1, 2. Woo, I'm getting warm already. When we really start controlling and isolating where those movements come from, you will feel a lot more specific muscle work going on in your body. So just so we have a little bit of extra stuff to drill, let's talk about taking this same shimmy onto one side. So this is a very important element when it comes to layering movements. The way we execute the movement is going to change when we change the position of the legs and the feet. So it's important if we want to walk or if we want to slide and weight shift back and forth to be able to get the same shimmy while only powering it from one leg. So let's try that out. Now we have to be a little more aware of how the bend and the straighten in the knee affect the hips. Again, as I stand on one side, I'm not letting my hip relax out and my knee to lock. I'm keeping the same nice straight position that I would if both of my feet were down. So I'm just extending one knee. Now this standing leg is going to do most of the work. The other leg is going to slightly move, but the standing leg is going to take most of the power of the movement. So I'm going to bend. As I bend, I'm thinking about using that movement to drive my hip down instead of letting that bend control my whole body. So I'm bending, driving the hip down, straightening without locking. So straightening to a neutral position, hips and back are still straight, up. So I'm driving it down, driving it up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Often when I teach these exercises, people ask me about glute squeezes because that is a big element of a lot of dancers' technique. For me personally, I don't usually add glute squeezes into shimmies, but it is something I add in with accents. So now that we're really just focusing on shimmy technique, try to focus on relaxing through the back of the legs and focus in on the powerhouses of this movement being more quad and more belly. The belly to help hold the body in position, and the quad and a little bit of hamstring to drive the hip up and down. All right? So now we have the basics. We're going to use these to drill and start layering. So first we'll drill our basic shimmy, then we'll add in some layers. So straight back and one at a time. I'm just going to adjust the volume so you can hear me. Okay. So one at a time. Try not to squeeze the glutes. Try not to shift weight. Hold the belly in, lengthen the tailbone down. Try to get the knees to pass each other and focus on sending that energy into the hips up, 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 up. Again, try not to shift weight. We're going shimmy. Try to keep the upper body still. Think about drawing the abs in and actively using the belly and the back to lengthen and lift the chest up and out of the hips without arching the back. Let's try it a little faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now let's switch to the other side. Bend to drop, straight to lift without locking the knee. 1, 2, 1, 2. Keeping the straight body line and trying not to change the level of your body. Isolating into that hip. So I'm going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A little faster. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, we've got the sides, we've got the middle. Let's work on the first layering drill that we have. The first layering drill is going to have to do with weight shifting and releve. With releve, please be careful about your ankles. If it's something that is bothering you, just go ahead and stay on flat feet. But anyway, I'm going to try and keep the same rhythm in my hips as I shift to the side onto one leg. So my feet are a little farther apart than the distance of my hip bones. I'm going to shift onto one side. So one leg is mainly powering the movement. As I come through the middle, I'm going to slowly integrate the other leg. So now I'm working evenly through both sides. And now I'm going to shift all of the work and the weight into the opposite leg. So the goal here is to keep the same rhythm and the same quality of movement as you change. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do it broken down like this, doing 4 in the middle, 4 on one leg, 4 in the middle, 4 on one leg, or as we move, continuously shifting smoothly through each position. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, both legs and one leg. Both legs and one leg. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want, you can try speeding this up a little bit. Let's come to the middle. Double time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Watch those shoulders. Make sure they're not wiggling to try and help the movement along, but they're just sitting relaxed, continuing to engage the belly to lift the chest away from the hips. Try not to shift weight between the feet. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, trying to hold the belly in, back towards the spine, lengthen the whole chest up and away from the hips. Using this constant separation with our muscles really helps to get that isolation, bringing that movement into just the hips and out of the chest. All right, let's try a slightly different movement. We're going to slide. So our feet are going to be stable. So I'm not shifting my weight to bring my feet up. Sorry, I had a little pause there. I'm not going to be shifting my weight to lift my feet, but I'm going to be keeping my feet stable on the ground and sliding back and forth in the hips. So this movement is going to be coming more from the sides of my body. This is a very important element that comes in when we want to start to layer movements. It's very important to identify what parts of the body are driving each movement so that we can stack them together in a way that really works and we have control over every part of what's happening. So I'm not just thinking about shaking and sliding back and forth. I'm thinking about, again, my legs driving my vertical shimmy and then reaching through the side of my body. So we have a set or two sets actually of abdominal muscles that run up and down the sides of the body, one kind of going in one direction, one kind of going in the other. These muscles are really helpful for us when it comes to side bending and twisting and for isolations like our slides. So my knees stay slightly bent. I'm going to slide out to the side. This is the hard part. As I come out, I'm not letting this knee straighten and lock. This knee stays a little bit bent. So it's a little counterintuitive. It's almost as if I'm sliding and then the side that the weight has come onto is getting a little bend. And you can see I sink a little bit deeper into the movement when I do this little adjustment here. So I'm sliding through my side muscles. I'm thinking about lengthening and pushing out through the side. My upper body almost does a little bit of a counter movement so that my chest is staying in the same place. So it's almost like a little counter pull. Hips are going out, chest is pulling to the opposite direction to stay centered between the feet, and the knees stay slightly bent. Slide and slide, slide and slide. Yes. 2, 1, 2. So really think about driving this movement from your side muscles. You're contracting in one side, lengthening in the other side, and the knees are staying stable in the same position. You will feel your weight shift a little bit, just don't let it lock out your knee, okay? So we have this layer we're going into next, and we're also going to come back into the little releve that I was talking about. So when we come up onto the balls of the feet, this becomes a really important position in more intermediate and advanced levels of belly dance because there are a lot of moving steps that we eventually do with the heels lifted, but we want to keep our hips going. So when I'm doing this movement, I'm trying to totally separate the movement of the foot from the movement of the knees and the leg, because the foot has to be stepping as the knees do their own thing. So when I come up, I tuck my knees a little more forward than I usually do when I'm standing with my feet flat, just to ensure that we can keep that elongated spine and that contraction in the belly. So make sure, again, when you come up onto the balls of your feet, this might be something, if you haven't done it a lot before, that you have to incorporate just into your daily practice routine just to get these muscles really strong. They're really important when it comes to footwork. They will really help protect your ankles. So I highly suggest practicing this as a little strength training routine or a warm-up before you get into your dance practice, just to make sure that you're really solidly balanced and strong in this position so we can prevent injury. So I'm lifting up, I'm keeping my alignment through my leg. So I'm exaggerating and I'm going pretty high, but in general for belly dance, we really don't have to come all the way up into a full releve. We can really just come onto a demi point, which just means my heels are slightly lifted off of the floor. So I'm pushing up onto the balls of my feet. I'm keeping my weight even between the inside and outside. If you feel your weight going towards your pinky toe, you might want to think about pressing your weight behind your big toe just to keep that strong, straight line through the legs coming up and down. Belly is engaged still, back is flat. And like I said, as I come up, I might let those legs bend a little more in front of the body just so I can keep that strong posture and alignment and balance here. So when I'm on releve, I'm not letting my heels drop to the ground when I'm working my legs. So I'm going to imagine I'm on little high heels. There are little blocks or little heels under my feet. So I can't push down through my heel. And all the movement has to be focused into my legs and into my hips as the feet remain still here. All right. So we're going to try and work with incorporating these two kind of fundamental moves into our drill. These are really important ones to practice, you guys. They will help a lot when it comes to getting into the really basic layers that we're going to need to use for our dance. So I'll go ahead and put some music back on. All right. So now I'm going to drill again at the speed where I can keep my shimmy technique consistent and I can keep the size of the shimmy nice and big, just the same size as I would do if I was going slow. So the main point here is to not let your muscles lock up. Do not let it turn into a vibration. Release the muscles in the back of the legs. Let the reverberation go through the back of the legs. Work on those thighs, work on that belly engagement. Okay. I was checking my comments. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So try and drill at this speed because we want to make sure we're training our body with the best technique possible as we go into those different layers. And again, keep focusing on what is driving each part of the shimmy. So we're also working on our overall body control and awareness on all the different parts of the body as we go. Okay? So legs slightly apart without the shimmy first. Try and slide. Slide from the sides. Keep the tailbone lengthening down so that we have a nice straight back. Feel that oppositional pull through the chest and through the hips to keep the chest more or less centered between the feet. Knees are staying soft the whole time, so all of this movement is coming from the sides. 1, 2. Now, here's our first little layering challenge. We're going to go back into the same shimmy technique and 1, 2, 1, 2. Starts to feel strange as we get to this side, right? That's where you really have to focus on where each part of the move is coming from. The knees consistently move to get that vertical hip movement, and we keep stretching through the side abdominals or the obliques to keep our shimmy moving side to side. Hold the belly in, keep lengthening the head and the chest straight up out of the spine, away from the hips. It's okay if your weight slightly shifts in this one. And in the middle, we're going to come up and down. Again, really focus in on your posture and start to incorporate the legs. I'm going up 2, 3, 4, down 2, 3, 4, up 2, 3, 4, down 2, 3, 4. So again, the challenge is to keep the same movement in the hips the whole time as I change the position of my feet. I'm keeping my heels separate from the movement in my knees and my legs. Notice that my thighs and my knees stay more in line with the front of my body than pushing into a diagonal line back. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's make this into a little bit of a combo. I'm going to go side, 2, 3, 4. On 4, I draw my leg in, and then I'm going to lift, drop, lift, drop. Slide the foot out, 2, 3, slide together, lift, drop, lift, drop. Slide, 2, 3, 4, lift, plie, just make sure you're aware of the position here. Let's add a little bit of arms. We're going to use our elbow to lift up for the slide, and then I lift and drop, lift and drop. So on my first releve, my arms circle up to the chest, and then on the second one, they circle down, back to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shake it out and start a shimmy. Again, find a speed where you can drill and keep really good technique. Don't go so fast that your muscles start to lock up. So even if it's just a super slow speed, this is perfect for drilling at and building that mind-body connection so that we can be totally in control of all of the movements. So I'm going to go side, 2, 3, together, up, down, up, down. Side, 2, 3, together, up, down, up, down. Side, 2, 3, together, and up, down, up. I'll give you a side view just to show I'm really keeping a nice, long, straight posture. Up, down, up, down. Side, 2, 3, together, and up, and down, and up, and down. Let's add in the arms. This is totally optional. If the shimmy is challenging enough, go ahead and keep drilling at your own pace. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Arms side with the hips and the shimmy. And then we lift and drop, lift and drop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it 2 more times. One more time. Side, 2, 3, 4. Lift, drop, lift, drop. Give it a little shake out. Okay, we're gonna take, I'll wait for Lena to come back. So another layer that I want to start introducing with all of these that's gonna be really important is a twist. It's so interesting because the twist is something we learn really early on in most belly dance classes. But sometimes it's not something that gets repeated a lot as we go to more advanced levels, depending on style. Some styles it does and some styles it doesn't. But twisting is something that I use a lot in my dance. Sometimes I use an actual hip twist as a movement, but twisting the hips inside of other layers or using it as a layer with other movements is a big thing that I do. So we learn so many of these moves kind of one at a time as if they are kind of an independent move and you can only use it in this one way. But what I so enjoy about watching dancers of origin who have grown up with these movements is they have a more fluid approach and a more fluid connection of all of these movements. So instead of each movement existing on its own and kind of being executed by itself, broken up like this, everything kind of smooths and flows into each other. And a lot of these movements can be combined. Or, as simply as the twist shows us, we can just add a little bit of change of orientation of the body position or the hips, and it will totally change the way that our movement looks. So these are things that I really like to play around with in my own dance, and it's a fun idea to add into your practice routine, to have your set of technique but also think about how you can combine some of these moves and how you can add interesting variations to some of the moves. So anyway, the twist is a big thing I use for that. I use it in my undulations to make my undulations more exciting. I use it with my umis, especially in tabla solos, to add extra interest and movement into the hips. And I use it layered with my shimmies. So this is a really interesting layer to try. So this will be a little bit of a challenge. So the abdominals and the obliques, the side abdominals, like I said, have a lot of influence in the body and control when it comes to twisting, or I should say importance. They have a big importance when it comes to twisting the hips. So the way that I like to think about this movement is almost as if my body or my torso is a towel, and I'm thinking about wringing out water from the towel. So I get this spiral effect through the body. Because if we just think about the hips, our chest and our arms tend to be really affected by the movement. But if I think about it more of this oppositional twist, then we get a really nice isolated muscular twist. So I'm thinking about almost as if my chest is where one hand is, my hips are where another hand is, and I'm wringing it out through this core section of my body. Those muscles are contracting and twisting, coming together to really get that twist. So this is what helps me isolate the twist, that oppositional spiral through the upper body as the hips twist to the other direction. So it's almost like my upper body is counter twisting, like the slide, to keep the chest in the same place. So knees are soft, but not in a plie. Very important with twists that you try to keep a long spine so that you're not putting pressure on your vertebra when you do twist. So again, 1, 2, 1, 2. My legs are staying slightly bent. You will see that because the hips are twisting, my thighs are shifting a little bit forward and back. But I'm trying not to point my knees side to side or let one leg straighten and one leg bend, because that throws off the level of the hips. I want them to stay in that level position. 1, 2, 1, 2. So when I really work this and isolate it, I'm feeling a lot of muscle work in my torso. 1, 2, 1, 2. Knees are slightly bent. So since I'm really working through here to get that twist, my thighs and my knees are free to add the shimmy back in. So I'm going 1, 2, draw the belly in, really focus on squeezing and twisting through the torso as we power the hips from the legs, doing our shimmy on top of the twist. So totally different way to layer some movements, but this is a great layer. This in itself, this drill, is a movement that I use, shimmying and twisting at the same time, but it's also a foundational movement for a lot of other layers, because we will eventually have to shimmy and twist the hips when we do things like walk, when we do things like add in figure eights. So it's just good to kind of get those muscles used to doing that totally opposite movement from what the legs and the hips are doing. So I'm going to take just a few minute break just because we need to get some water and I'm sweaty. But I'm also going to open it up. Lena is going to be looking at the chat to see if we can get some questions. So we'll take a minute or two to answer questions. Go ahead and pop on the chat if you want to ask anything. Okay, I have a first question here. It is, can we feel something in our body as a sign we're doing something wrong whilst layering shimmies, since we can't have a mirror every time? One of the main things that I think is the most important thing to look out for when you're dancing is pain, okay? especially on these moves that are twisting and on a lot of undulation moves. Usually, if you're not really focusing in on the muscle work that should be going on, we end up putting a lot of pressure in our spine, which not only doesn't give us as much control in the movement, but it can also really damage our bodies. So, pain is something that I would look out for if you feel a shooting pain or a pinch, or if the next day you feel a really dull, aching sensation that's not necessarily muscle soreness from working the muscles. That's a huge thing to look out for when you practice. So, if I am in pain during a movement, my normal procedure is to stop, make a note of it, and then make sure when I go home and practice, I am looking at myself in the mirror with that movement and saying, what part of this is unhealthily positioned or being executed. I'm trying to think of another one we could say, especially when it comes in your upper body, if you're doing too much weight shift or if you're helping too much with this part. And by that, I mean, when we first walk into belly dance class, I think the general thing for us to do is to kind of move like this, move everything together. And the main reason for this is we don't yet know how to isolate each part of the body. We don't know what to focus on, so everything works together. So you can think about the same thing when you're practicing isolations and layers, especially with the shimmies. You will really feel immediately how much of that movement is getting into your upper body. Okay. So, for example, if I'm shifting my weight so much and locking my knees with my shimmy, you can immediately see in the upper body how much reverberation I get. I'm locking my knees, I'm not controlling the position of my pelvis, and I'm shifting my weight. I can immediately feel this up here. Okay. But when I'm isolating down into my hips, I'll feel a calm and a stillness in my upper body. So for shimmies, those are two things to definitely look out for. So I'm going to look, we have a few more questions here. Body conditioning exercises. Okay, there were two questions on that were good clarification questions. There are so many different kinds of exercise that we can use as supplements for our belly dance work. Of course, I'm going to say Pilates is really great because I'm a Pilates instructor. But the reason why I think it's so great is it focuses so much on core stability, but also sequential rolling movements through the core and through the spine. So it really teaches you how to do all of these movements from the belly, keeping the spine long and in a safe position, but also teaching how to keep general stability from the abdominals so we're not putting that pressure into the spine, which is really important. And again, that kind of comes back to the pain issue, because if we don't have that core support, then a lot of pressure goes into our back, and especially with hip movements where we're lifting and twisting, the vertebrae are going like this. We want to keep that space between the vertebra, and the belly really helps. For the one leg shimmy, this is another question. I'm using the same movement in the legs that I am here. So both legs are still moving in opposite directions, okay? But all that's happening is I'm putting more focus on the standing leg. So the other leg is moving a little bit, but I have to focus more on the leg that the weight is in. So they are going opposite. One is bending, one is straightening. They're not going at the same time. Another one. I love all of these questions, you guys. I love being able to answer stuff that's on people's minds. Let's see. What are your favorite hip opener stretches and warm-up moves? One of my, of course, a lot of them are laying on the floor. My two favorite hip opening stretches are going to be the happy baby one from yoga. I'm not going to do it on here just because I need to lay on the ground, but go ahead and look it up online. That's a really good hip opener. And another stretch that I usually do that really helps with the psoas are any variation of the kind of figure four stretch. I usually do one laying on my back where one leg is over one knee. Sometimes this is enough to really get those muscles stretched out, totally dependent on your own flexibility. But I do one laying on the floor. I'll try to recreate it here, where I'm holding my shin and I'm pulling towards my body, making sure that I'm not putting pressure on the ankle, but it's more of like a figure four stretch. These are the two that I do a lot. When it comes to warming up, the little warm up I did at the beginning, for me personally, is really helpful. I try to get as many of the joints in the body moving as possible. And I try to warm up all of those core muscles, belly, front belly, obliques, side. I try to mobilize my spine in all of those different directions before I dance. So let's see. Next one. No. There was a question, is it normal to feel front pelvic muscle pain or am I engaging too much? No, I would not engage so much in the pelvic floor, especially if it's putting you into pain. And I really cue and focus this contraction a lot just to make sure we get used to stabilizing with the abdominals and just using them to keep a nice straight spine. But you don't have to worry about like crushing in with those muscles the whole time you dance. I just keep cueing so that we can keep awareness here so that we can have that little bit of engagement to keep that long and healthy position in the back. Okay, we have one more question and then I'm going to hop back into teaching some drills. And I'm actually going to teach a little bit of belly stuff because that's something people ask me a lot about. So sometimes I feel my both knee and bum shimmy doesn't happen or stops in between. Check the technique. Yet after 3 years I practice, expect it to be. So I'm going to answer this question in kind of a general way that's going to apply to a lot of different movements that you might be having trouble with or anyone might be having trouble with. So when there is a movement that is giving me a lot of trouble as far as drilling and learning it goes, I, again, just like the ones that put me in pain, I make a note of it and I go into the mirror on my next practice session. Look at where your weight is on your feet. Look at where your pelvis is in position or in relation to the rest of your body. Focus in on what muscles are driving the exercise that you're doing. What muscles are working? What muscles are relaxed? So much of the time, tweaking these little details is the key to making a movement work on your body. And it's really important to understand that we do work with so many different body types. Belly dance is friendly to a lot of different body types, but not every body is going to move in the same way. So I know a lot of dancers that have tried to master certain moves and they're like, I'm doing it exactly the way my teacher is doing it. Why isn't it working? Sometimes you need to tweak things so that they fit your body and then you'll be able to master the movement. So there's a lot of movements where I've experienced the same thing and it took kind of going and looking at those little adjustments, seeing like if my hips are more forward, does this work? If my weight is back, does this work? Until everything starts to kind of loosen up because so often it's a teeny little detail. And I got one more question that I will answer and then we'll start with a little bit of different technique. So the last question was, how do I improve my shimmies? our drilling like this, like I gave you guys a lot of detail. This is really important. Doesn't have to be my technique. Everyone has different technique and there's tons of different shimmies, but just going through your movement and being aware of each part of it, really helpful. But for shimmies, especially, since this is a movement that's almost like pretty cardio heavy, it's almost like running in place, at least my technique, because I'm like very quad driven. So there are a lot of supplemental exercises that'll really help you. And one of the main ones that I do a fair amount is sitting on the floor and doing my shimmies here. And when I'm here, again, I'm focusing in on the muscles that I want to be driving the movement. I'm focusing on the alignment of my legs, the range of motion in my legs. So this is a really good place where you can work on even rhythm with the shimmies. You can really build up strength and endurance and get used to the knees moving and the legs powering the movement. Here, this is just a great exercise. Any strengthening exercises you can do are excellent for belly or for legs. Just make sure that you know the technique that you're focusing on and what muscles are driving it, so that when you add in exercises to supplement your dance, that you're strengthening the right muscles, the ones that you want to be working with. So there's a whole bunch of tips. Let's do a little more technique, and then we will do a fun little kind of a combo challenge. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys my fundamental belly exercise. I'm going to show you a little more of my belly. This is just an exercise to get the belly moving and the chest moving, and we're going to incorporate it a little bit into what we're doing. I want to add this in because it's such a big thing that I use inside of my dance, and it's something people ask about. So I wanted to go ahead and just take a minute on it. So when it comes to belly and chest isolations, I have a very muscular approach to what I'm doing. When I practice my belly muscles, I try to keep my back straight, okay? This is really important when it comes to the isolation aspect of these movements, because if we're using our back to kind of make it look like the front is doing work, we never actually train these muscles. Later on, of course, I do add my back in to some movements, but I want to make sure first I can train these muscles to move independently so they can build that strength and that isolation. So as I practice, I try and keep that super straight back. I try to keep my head and my shoulders in line with my spine so that I have a nice, clean posture to work with. Now, I bring my hands on my belly, and I'm going to do something that might not be something you want to do at first. I am going to push my belly muscles out without arching my back. So I'm trying to push those belly muscles out into my hands, expanding, stretching, and strengthening. And then I'm going to draw them in, scooping and hollowing the belly to bring the muscles back towards the spine. So we're expanding and pushing out, hollowing out and coming in. And one thing that you'll notice about my technique, which I'm demonstrating right now, is that this is not a breath-driven muscle technique. This is purely muscular, and I separate my breath from these movements so that I can keep layering them with other moves. I can keep my breath going so I can keep the moves going for longer. There's a couple different reasons why I separate the breath. So I'm expanding and contracting, trying to breathe normally, trying to keep my shoulders still and relaxed as well as my spine. And I'm trying to press the whole belly out and in just to get those muscles moving. So here's where my technique deviates from some people's technique when I come into the chest. So this is a really good example that I want to point out about adjusting movements to fit your unique body. I have a curvature in my spine. I have scoliosis. So my spine kind of goes like this. So if I do a lot of motions pressing through my upper back, it puts me and my body in pain because of that condition that I have in my spine. So what happened was I needed to find another technique that I could use to get a similar look to what I wanted while making it safe and sustainable for my body. Okay. So I learned how to manipulate and isolate my chest without driving it from the upper back. Okay. So I will show you how I did that. I am going to put my hands around my rib cage, and I'm going to do what I just said I don't do, which is use my breath just to find the movement that I'm looking for. So as I breathe, I'm going to try to direct that breath into my ribs, not to lift my ribs, but to widen and open the ribs. The rib cage is not static. The rib cage has a lot of flexibility, and we feel that when we do this, when we breathe. And we can direct that breath in a lot of different directions. We can expand the back ribs, we can expand sideways into the ribs or front into the ribs and the belly. We have a lot of control, and playing around with this control will usually give you a little more connection and control over these muscles that go up into the ribs and under the ribs. These are the little muscles that I use for my chest isolations so that I don't have to use my back. Okay, so I'm lifting and expanding and releasing. And again, to find this movement, you might have to use your breath. But as you can see, I'm demonstrating that you can isolate this muscle work from your breath. And that's what I use for my chest isolations. So I'm going to combine both. I'm going to use my belly. As my belly contracts and almost retracts back towards the spine, I'm going to think about using that motion to hollow out the belly, almost as if those muscles are pulling up under the ribs to open and expand them, which is going to lift my chest and then drop. 1, 2, 1, 2. Of course, there are muscles that wrap back around the ribs and under the arms that you will start to feel, but I shouldn't feel a pressure in my back from pushing. So I'll show you here that this is a really muscular movement and my back is remaining still. You will see that little bit of muscle work around here, around the serratus. 1, 2, 1, 2. My breath is relaxed, my throat is relaxed, and I'm just coming down and down and down and down. Okay, so we're gonna go for about another 10 minutes of drilling, and then I'll open up at the end for some more questions and for Lena to say a few things. The next thing we're going to do, we're gonna drill a few new layers, and then I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a challenge. We'll talk a little more about the challenge at the end of the class, but this is going to be something that you can participate in and have the chance to win some prizes. It'll be good motivation to practice some of these layering drills. All right, so let's try a few different layers now. So we have our basic shimmy, right, that we've been practicing. Now we're going to add a figure 8, a horizontal figure 8. So this is going to be combining two of the moves we already did. We're going to have to twist and slide. Twist and slide. Again, trying to keep a straight back. Try not to arch the back. Try not to lock out the knees. I'm twisting and sliding. twisting. As I twist, keep on thinking about that oppositional twist to keep the chest forward, and slide, twist, and slide, twist, and slide, twist, and slide. So all I do is smooth out these points. My weight is shifting slightly. I'm really working through my core to get that slide and that twist. And I'm keeping that movement going through my legs. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, I'm going to throw on some music and we will add a couple of these other layers into what we're doing. Okay, come back to, again, a speed where you can really keep the same consistent technique. Nice posture, consistent shimmy. Now I'm going to shift my weight. One leg shimmy. Now we're going to try to float the other leg off of the floor without stopping the shimmy. So what we're getting ready for here is walking while keeping that consistent shimmy going. So really important here that we don't lock the knee, and we're working with that one leg shimmy to keep the shimmy going. If you need to keep one foot pointed on the floor, that's totally fine. If you're a higher level and you want to challenge yourself more, we're going to go into a march. So I'm lifting my knee up in front and keeping the shimmy going. My abs are really going to be working hard here to get that leg up. We really have to keep that spine long, belly engaged. And now with the chest, drop and lift. Belly and chest. So my belly contracts and pulls in to lift and open the ribs, and then relaxes down and out as my ribs come together, close and come down. This is where it becomes really important not to weight shift, because being able to do a consistent drop with the chest and the belly is going to be a lot easier if the upper body is stable. So if you want, go ahead and try keeping your shimmy, and then I'm going to go down and up, down and up, down and up, down and up, down and up. So all of these little details that I talked about with practice, once we have all of that control and awareness, we can execute these beautiful clear layers, okay? All right. So we will use the last few minutes to do our little challenge. So the challenge is going to be a shimmy layering challenge. I challenge you to layer as many movements as possible while maintaining a consistent shimmy. So this is something that comes into play when you advance in levels of belly dance, is that we end up layering so many different movements together, to the point of everything kind of flowing together almost as if it's the same move, even though there's so many different details going on. So this challenge is just kind of to work on that body control and that body awareness and being able to layer different movements together. So what we're going to do is we're going to build. We're going to build all of these layers on top of each other. And your challenge will be to see how many of these layers you can simultaneously execute and keep going as you dance. So I'll go ahead and teach this, but I'll also be posting this again. If you forget any of the moves, it's totally cool. And Lena will talk a little bit about more of the details of this as a challenge. But anyway, let's do the actual movements now. So I'll start with some music, and we are going to challenge our brains and our bodies. Okay? So the first movement I'm going to start with is the shimmy. So the main part of the challenge is keeping that consistent shimmy going as we add in each move. So first, we slide and slide. Now let's twist. Twist and twist. Now I'm going to combine both. Slide, or I should say twist, and then slide. Twist and slide. Twist and slide. Smooth it out. So we're going into a full figure 8 with this shimmy. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now 1, 2, 1, 2. Next layer is chest and belly. I'm going to try and go drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift. Next 2 layers. So we have all of our torso movements going. 3 different moves. Now we're going to add in 2 layers that are important for us as we advance and dance. We're going to add arms. We're going to add walking. Okay? So come into the same combination. I'm going drop, 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 drop. As I shimmy and figure 8. Now I'm going to start to think about the weight shift on my feet. As I figure 8, I'm going to try and transition my weight completely onto that foot so that I can pick the next foot up and use it as a step. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And adding in the chest. Now, one more layer, as much as you can do. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm continuously circling the arms smoothly without stopping. So make sure you're not kind of forcing yourself through it. The arms are soft. They continuously circle as the rest of the body moves. So we're layering 1, shimmies, 2, 8s, 3, chest, 4, feet, 5, arms, 'And as we execute everything at the same time, the biggest challenge is to keep every move going so that everything flows together as if it's all one whole body movement. And shake it out. All right. So we've done a whole lot of shaking around. It was really fun to be able to jump on and share some technique and dance with everybody for a good cause here. Again, make sure that you take a look at Lena's page and think about making a donation to this really great charity where, again, if you didn't catch it at the beginning, we are raising money to help support migrant workers that have been displaced during the pandemic. Thank you guys so much. I can take a few more minutes. Anybody has any other little questions, and then I will go and hand it over back to Lena.
There are no questions so far, but I'm just looking again.
Okay, sounds good. And you guys can always message me.
Yeah, I just check. Let me do another check.
And like I said, I'll go ahead after we finish, I'll go ahead and film the same combination and just pop it up on my social media so that we can keep practicing for the challenge. Yeah.
I think that's it. There are no questions, but there are people who said you've accepted the challenge. So
yes. Feel free to add more layers if you want to try.
right. Cool. So yeah, so thank you so much, Shahrzad. I was mesmerized. I was watching here and I was like, okay, I've got to try this 4 layers. That's a lot already. And you make it look so easy and so smooth and so sophisticated. Like, wow, it's so beautiful to watch. So, yeah, but I had to keep my eye out for the questions and sort of kind of break my attention from that. But it was beautiful to watch. So I hope you guys loved it. Give us a heart if you enjoyed it, you took something away, and if you've got even something that you learned, put it in the comments. Let us know. Let Shahrzad know what you're taking away. What were your key learnings, or even if you just put a heart or a few words, that would go a long way in letting us know how much you enjoyed the workshop. And yes, do come forward to give back and to complete the circle of love and support by supporting the cause, supporting the underprivileged who built our cities in India, and basically even if you're coming from another country, they're the people who basically are really underprivileged, and the government support hasn't quite reached them or not enough. And so really it's like serving a part of humanity, even if it's across another country. And given all the crisis we're going through, I think we're realizing that the borders the international borders are kind of melting away, and we're facing similar crisis around the world. It's just that maybe the labels change, but we are basically fighting for the people who are underprivileged, who don't have a voice, and who have to fight for their basic right to live. So yeah, let's do our little bit for that. And regarding Shahzad's challenge, we have something very interesting. So go ahead and post your video of the of from the shimmy practice, and tag Shahzad, tag our Insta page. And once you do that, we know you're part of the contest, right? And yeah, and of course mentioned a hashtag shimmy challenge, so that we know you're part of this challenge. And we're going to put up this in the comment section, so don't worry, I'm just saying it right now. And then we will take your video and we're going to put it in a playlist. So Shahzad would choose the winners, and also we have a People's Choice Award based on the likes and the comments that you get for your videos and the views. So yeah, we have Shahzad's course material and her music CD, which are up for prizes. So Shahzad will pick the winners, and we will accordingly distribute the prizes. So, and the top winner gets to feature in Zamina, which is a monthly magazine with a huge subscription database run by Zara. And so it's an amazing magazine, and she's going to feature the winner on that. So yeah, stay tuned. You get a chance to be in the limelight as well. So, right, I think. Yeah, so we're going to put the rules to this on the group. You will find it there, and Shahzad has also will also put up the video for you to review if you want to review it on her Insta or her social media. But it will also be on our group as well, so you can review Shahzad's material for the next 48 hours. So yeah, go ahead and hope to see you on the other side when you put your practice video and hopefully win as well. So yeah, so anyways, thank you for joining us from wherever you did. Tomorrow we have two great workshops. One is on music rights, which I think is a very important topic, given that it's becoming like very difficult sometimes to use copyrighted music across different platforms. And I think we all want to know more about that. And there's not even I, while organizing this event, had to take care of those things. And so So Joey is going to explain that, and Tara is going to come back with another class on ballet fitness. So she did really well. People loved her self massage class 2 days ago, and she's been really winning a lot of hearts and getting a lot of comments for her work. So yeah, do join us tomorrow for that as well. And thank you, Shahrzad, once again. It's an honor to have had you. I can't believe you're working together after seeing you in Cairo. So thank you so much for being here. And I know for all the US teachers, it's been very difficult because what they're going through with their surroundings, it's very stressful. And for them to just focus and bring their attention and love to this project is already a lot. So I totally appreciate that. So thank you so much for everybody who's joining, and I will catch you tomorrow.